Good morning and hello everyone.
Hello everybody.
And welcome again to a post-Halloween
Stories with Reginald. Hi everybody.
Hi, how are you? Did you get to go trick-or-treating this year?
Well, it was a little different this year.
Yeah, you couldn't walk around and see everybody and...
No, but we ended up just putting a mask on.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, we already had the masks.
Right, so you dressed up as what?
A masked man.
A masked man.
Or a masked puppet.
Masked puppet. Right.
What did you dress as?
I didn't dress up, I have to say.
Well, that's okay.
So, pumpkins are always fun on Halloween.
And even into November, into Thanksgiving time.
Right, and I have a book about pumpkins.
You do?
I do. It's called The Biggest Pumpkin Ever.
Wow. Do you have any pumpkin jokes?
Yeah, I got a pumpkin joke. So why is Cinderella bad at football?
Why is Cinderella bad at football? I don't know.
Well, she had a pumpkin as a coach.
Oh. Hey, Pastor Andy.
Yes, sir.
What do you get when you drop a pumpkin?
What do you get when you drop a pumpkin? I don't know.
Squash.
Ugh.
Okay, let's read the book. Wait,
all right.
What is it?
Well, we have a question. Before I read the book, we have a
Oh, that's right. We have a question.
We have a question, and this question comes from Ellie, and she says this. So when God sends messages to other people, how do we know? Because we can't see him.
Oh, wow.
How do we know when God sends us messages when we can't see him?
Well, that's a great question.
Right.
Well, thank you, Ellie.
Yeah, thank you. Any ideas?
Well, I don't know. If you think about it, though, do you ever get an email?
I get emails, yeah. I get text messages and Snapchats and everything.
Can you see the person on the other side?
Usually not. Usually not. You can't see them. But we know it's them because, well, maybe it's their email address or the return address via a letter.
Yeah.
Return address. And you know what else? When people send you letters or notes, you know it's them because of the words they say.
That's right.
So if they're really kind words and they're trying to help you, then you know who sent them to you.
And so if you think about it, and God is love.
God is love.
And so if we look outside and we see love, or we see something that we've been blessed with, that's God.
We know it's God.
And God is there all the time. And sometimes we're the ones that don't really see it, but God's always there.
Right. And when we pray,
God is there.
God is there. We don't actually see God. Well, we might see God in our minds, but we know when God answers that those things that God say to us are the right things.
That's right. So that's why it's so important to pray.
It
is. And to read the Bible and to talk to people about God. And if you don't know the answer to your question, then maybe we can all come together based on prayer and reading the Bible and talking with one another, like we are today.
Right, exactly. So we may not see God, but we know that it's God talking to us.
You betcha.
Right? Because it's all the wonderful messages and all the love and all the care and all the grace that God sends to us.
That's right. So, Ellie, keep asking those questions. That's wonderful.
It's a great question, Ellie.
Great question.
And now I'm going to read The Biggest Pumpkin Ever.
Whoa, that's really big.
Yeah, it is big.
Especially when you held it close to the camera.
Right. It's like when you go fishing. Now, this book is written by Steven Kroll, and the illustrations are by Jeni Bassett.
Okay.
And it starts this way. Once there were two mice who fell in love with the same pumpkin.
Wow.
I'm having trouble with my pages today. All right. Clayton, the house mouse, noticed it one day in the vegetable garden. It was a very little and green, but Clayton thought he could make it grow really big. It might even get big enough to win the grand prize at the town pumpkin contest.
Wow, so the biggest pumpkin.
Yeah, Desmond, the field mouse, discovered the pumpkin the same day. He thought if he helped it grow, it could become the biggest jack-o'-lantern in the neighborhood.
Wow.
That afternoon, Clayton watered the pumpkin. He also mixed up some fertilizer of manure and water. He spread the mixture around the pumpkin. It made it grow larger. Desmond, that very same night, Desmond went into the garden. He watered the pumpkin too. He also spread some manure mixed with water around it. So they're both fixing it.
Yeah.
The next day, Clayton watered and fertilized the pumpkin again. The next night, Desmond did the same, and the pumpkin began to grow. By the end of the month, the pumpkin was so large, Clayton couldn't believe his eyes.
Wow.
My goodness, said Clayton's mother. And it's not even full grown. Clayton shrugged. All I do is water it, he said. Clayton's mother whispered in his ear. If you want the pumpkin to grow bigger and faster, she said, you should use sugar water.
Sugar water?
Who knew? That night, Desmond brought his brother Morris to see the pumpkin. Morris knew everything there was to know about growing things. That's some pumpkin, he said. Desmond shrugged. All I do is water it, he said. Morris whispered into his ear. You should try using sugar water, he said.
There's sugar water again.
Yeah. The next day, Clayton dug a small hole beside the pumpkin vine. In the hole, he placed a bowl full of sugar water. He cut into the vine a few inches from the pumpkin and cut a new one at the end of the piece of candlewood. Then he put the other end in a bowl of sugar water. Well, that's interesting. That night, on the other side of the pumpkin, Desmond did exactly the same thing.
Wow.
Within a week, the pumpkin was twice the size it had been. Within 2 weeks, it was absolutely enormous.
Wow, look at that pumpkin. It's getting really big.
It's bigger than the mice. Yeah. Clayton was amazed. He ran down the road and peeked into his friend Jimmy's pumpkin patch. The pumpkin Jimmy was growing for the contest looked much smaller. Clayton scratched his head. I have an amazing pumpkin, he said out loud. I think I'm going to win the contest. That night, Desmond and his brother, Morris, spent the long time looking at the pumpkin. How do you think it got that big? Desmond asked. Morris shrugged. A little luck, a little skill. It's going to make some jack-o'-lantern, said Desmond. I'm sure it is, said Morris.
Yeah, I saw lots of those on Halloween.
Yeah, so did I. A week later, Clayton noticed the pumpkin was bigger than the family car.
Wow.
During the day, everyone he knew came to admire it. At night, all the field mice gathered around to do the same. Now, by summer was almost over. In a week, the pumpkin would be full grown and start turning yellowish, and then, what color?
Orange.
Orange.
Yeah.
A few weeks after that, it would be ripe and ready for the pumpkin contest. Clayton could hardly wait. The pumpkin was growing so fast, it would soon be larger than his house.
Wow, a mouse house.
A mouse house. Then he had a terrible thought. If the pumpkin was too big, how would he get it to the contest? It wouldn't fit in his red wagon. It wouldn't even fit in a truck. Clayton decided to worry about it when the time came.
A good thing. Don't worry.
That night, the weather grew colder. Thinking there might be an early frost, Clayton rushed out to the pumpkin with his blanket. One was not enough. Soon he was rushing back and forth, carrying all the blankets from the house. As he worked, he hummed a little song, and as he hummed, he heard someone else singing. He also began to realize that someone else was covering the pumpkin with a blanket.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Desmond had seen the danger of the early frost. He too had brought blankets for the pumpkin, and he worked and sang a little song. As he sang, he began to realize that someone else was working and humming.
Really?
Yeah. Clayton stopped humming. He put down his pile of blankets and peered around the corner of the pumpkin. Desmond stopped singing. He put down his blanket and peered around the corner of the pumpkin. The two of them bumped heads and fell down. You've been feeding the pumpkin, said Clayton. You've been feeding the pumpkin, said Desmond. That's why it got so big, said Clayton. That's why it got so big, said Desmond.
They were both feeding the pumpkin.
And they both started laughing. When everything had been explained, Clayton said, I know I'll win the contest if I get the pumpkin to town. Desmond smiled. I'll help you. Just let me carve the pumpkin into a jack-o'-lantern for Halloween when the contest is over. They're working together. Isn't that nice?
Oh, that's a great way to do things.
It's a deal, said Clayton. A deal, said Desmond, and they shook on it. The morning of the contest was bright and sunny. Mice were bringing their pumpkins to the town square by truck, by car, by wagon. Some were rolling them along the ground. Suddenly, dun dun dun,
Dun, dun, dun.
all stopped short. Over the fields came the biggest pumpkin anyone had ever seen.
Oh,
it was
wow.
being pulled by 100 mice on motorcycles.
Mice on motorcycles.
That's just crazy. When the pumpkin reached town, it was too big for any of the streets. Clayton had to explain why they couldn't bring it into the square. The mayor understood at once. He led the crowd to the giant pumpkin and pinned the first prize ribbon on its side. Then everyone danced around it. Who would have ever believed this, said Clayton as he danced. Who would ever believe this, said Desmond at the same moment. Where's my last page?
It's in there.
I gotta get it. My fingers are not doing it right. There it is. When the celebration was over, the 100 field mice pulled the pumpkin back to the field the day before Halloween and carved it into the best jack-o'-lantern ever.
Wow, that would be a big one.
On Halloween night, its wonderful smiling face could be seen glowing for miles away.
Wow.
The end.
I wonder if I saw that jack-o'-lantern when I went out trick-or-treating.
Maybe. It would have been bigger than Reginald, that's for sure.
Ah, yeah. Hey, Pastor Andy.
Yes, sir.
What did the little pumpkin, who led the little pumpkin across the street?
Who led the little pumpkin across the street? I don't know.
The crossing gourd.
Oh.
Oh, and what do you get if you divide the circumference of a pumpkin by its diameter? This is for those big kids out there.
The big kids who understand geometry, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Pumpkin pie.
Oh, yeah, of course, pumpkin pie. I love pumpkin pie.
Hey, and Thanksgiving's just around the corner, so we'll get some.
With whipped cream on it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Pumpkin pie is about the color of your hair.
Yeah, it kind of is.
Yeah. So, Macy, or not Ellie, thanks for your question. Keep sending us questions, kids, and we'll try to answer them. And if you have a favorite book, send that to us as well, and we'll read it.
That's right. Hey, let's go ahead and pray, but we're going to do our prayer song.
Prayer song.
It's Sanctuary.
All right, I'm ready.
So sing along with this.
Ready?
Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true. With thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for you.
Now remember to do what this week?
Be a blessing.
Be a blessing to anyone you meet.
That's right.
All right.
See you, kids.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.